Hello everybody and welcome back to Lori's Boston Found, where thrifted is the new black. My name is Lori. I'm a full-time reseller on Poshmark and on eBay, and I've added Mercari to the mix. I'm at about 50 new listings over at Mercari. I haven't sold anything yet, but I'm excited to add a new platform. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I am so happy to see you. I am a full-time reseller, as I mentioned, and I also share all of my adventures in thrifting and reselling here with my community on YouTube. So between the two, that's what I do full-time. I do a lot of haul videos. Today, I'm actually bringing you a what sold video with a little spin. If you read the title and that's what brought you here, I'm doing what sold so far in 2021 vintage edition. I have like 13 or 14 pieces that have sold since January 1st. I recently did a video on what sold on eBay in the month of January. I can link that video above here. So I'm not doing like a traditional what sold video this month. It'll be back next month, but I feel like we're partway through February, so I wanted to do something a little unique. And vintage is an area that I'm very excited about. I'm very interested in it. I think when you've been thrifting for some time and you come across a piece that has history to it, that has great fabric content, or is a classic brand, I just love to find pieces that have a story. So I have a huge interest in vintage, but I would not consider myself an expert in vintage. I feel like this video will be really valuable because I think it's hard to price vintage. And you will see that some of these pieces that I sold, some I priced high and I ended up selling them less 50% or more with my original listing. It's kind of hard to find comps on vintage pieces sometimes. Do you list it as vintage? Do you list it by the brand? There are so many questions about vintage. So I thought I would just present to you some of my sales in the vintage category, and that could give you some information, at least for what's working for me. And these are all Poshmark sales, and I hope you'll find this information interesting. If that sounds good to you, hit that like button, consider subscribing to my channel if you want to be part of my community, and let's get into it. All right, I am going to start with some of the super obvious vintage stuff that I know is vintage, and then I'm just going to share a little bit at the very end of this video, some brands that sold that are right on the cusp. They're either like Y2K or maybe late 1990s that I maybe didn't mark as vintage, but I thought it was worth noting that they sold. I'll share the images with you, and you can let me know what you think as far as time goes. And by all means, if you are a vintage expert and you can add anything to this conversation, please leave a comment below. You know, maybe I priced something too low, maybe I was a little ambitious with my pricing. I'm always excited to learn more about vintage. It's definitely a category that is hot, will continue to be hot, and I just want to stay up to speed with it on some of the trends in vintage and whatnot. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to start with a piece that I bought last year that I was super excited about. It was a Woolrich buffalo plaid shacket, which was a big trend this fall and winter of 2020, 2021, and the shacket is a shirt that's also a jacket. This Woolrich buffalo plaid shacket I sold last year. I had it listed for $100. I went back and forth with a gentleman, and he ended up getting me down to $60 on my price. It ended up coming back. The gentleman didn't think it was the quality it should have been, not as far as like item not as described. He just thought it was going to be a more substantial piece. And I was really disappointed because there was all this hype over this style jacket. So I relisted it. It's been at $100 ever since it came back. So it's been a long time, and I thought for sure it was going to sell in like the $75 area this year. It had several likes on it. Let me just see how many likes you had. Mr. Woolrich jacket had 25 likes on it, and I sent several offers. In the end, I received a $50 offer on this piece. I had it listed at $100 and I accepted $50. This just sold last week, and ironically it sold next to another Woolrich shirt that was also pretty substantial. This was more like a fleece lined shacket, and this was almost looks like a hunting shirt and had a patch on the shoulder. This I had listed at $50. I had had it for a while, and it ended up selling for $25. The irony of this sale is that the 2 items went to the same person, but they sent me 2 separate offers, both half off. And typically I would write to a person and say, I want to save you money on shipping, and then like cancel those 2 orders or bundle them or whatever. But in this case, they offered me 50% off each item, and I really just wanted to move these items, so I just accepted both offers. They ended up paying the extra $7, but they did get 50% off both items. So I just kind of wanted it to be clean and get those items out the door. I still would pick up, especially the buffalo plaid. I don't know if it was just because it was sitting around, maybe I should have relisted it. But anyways, that sold for $50 and $25, still $75. And I know I made a good profit on both of those items. Next up is just this really pretty pleated popover blouse. I believe I got this at Savers. I ended up selling this for $22 with discounted shipping. I just liked the looks of this. I'm sure I didn't pay more than $3 for this. It did take a bit to sell, but in the end it sold for $22, and I think it was a really cute piece. I might pick it up again at the bins. I don't think I would pay a lot. It's tricky. I just listed this as vintage pleated plaid popover blouse, and it had some like striping detail in it. I did offer discounted shipping. The brand was Sophisticates. Do you remember Petite Sophisticates? I would definitely date this in the 80s. The next item that sold was a really exciting full price sale for me. I did not anticipate this was going to sell for full price. It was a Longchamp hooded raincoat in a size medium in this like burnt orange color. I purchased this at Savers. I believe it was $9.99, and I'm not sure if I had 20% off or not. So it was either $8 or $10. I wanted to make sure that it was real. I do remember on the zipper, there was some branding, and there was also like a little leather patch that had the Longchamp logo on it. And I did run comps, and I had seen the exact same style. I think it was like a packable rain jacket, although I didn't have the bag that it went in, but I really loved the color, and I listed it for $65. It had 10 likes, a couple questions on it, but it did end up selling for $65. I was super excited, and just based on the looks of this raincoat, it's nothing that I would have grabbed based on style. This was something I definitely picked up because of the color and because of the brand and because it was vintage. I thought it was a cool combination. I was really happy that that sold for full price, $65. That was great. Also, maybe what I'll do is when I go back and edit this, I will just put on the screen how many days I had it on hand, because I think one of the things about vintage pieces is sometimes they can sit for a while. It is going to take a more unique buyer for many vintage pieces, unless it's something that's super hot, like that Woolrich shacket, and I felt like that was super on trend and it still sat for a while. Maybe it's because I had it priced too high. Pricing with vintage can be very tricky, and then I priced the Longchamp at $65 and it sold for full price. So this gets into where do you price things at. Comps are really helpful, and if you can find them on vintage things, then definitely, you always want to look up comps when you're unsure, unless you're paying bins prices, then you can take a lot more chances. But a lot of these pieces, you know, that Longchamp I did pay $10 for, that's more than I typically spend on an item, but because it was vintage, I kind of thought that that might have been a good purchase, and it's good that it worked out. They don't always work out so well. This next sale, these pieces sold for $35, and when you see the picture, I really thought that I staged these very well. I picked these up in an estate sale, and I sold so many pieces from this particular estate sale, but she was selling hats and purses for just $2, and I found these 2 pieces that were matching, a hat and a purse, and they were this woven wool fabric. Oh, they were just gorgeous. So I'll pop up the picture. The brand was called Everett. This estate sale was in the Worcester area, and a lot of her pieces were from department stores in the 50s and 60s that were located in Worcester, Massachusetts, or Boston. So I thought this set was beautiful. I had it priced at $60. It had 24 likes, so definitely a lot of attention. Somebody sent me an offer for $35, and I think I had had this since last spring. I think this was one of the first estate sales after COVID. It's been sitting for a while and we're kind of on our way out of winter, and this was wool, but a gorgeous set. And the woman was really sweet. She just wrote me a thank you and just said, thank you so much. I appreciate it for taking her offer because it was almost half off what I had. This was something I was really happy to send off. I still only had $4 into this set, so it was still a great return, but clearly I had it priced a little bit high. The next item I want to talk about is vintage Liz Claiborne. Pretty certain I picked this up at the bins. It was a silk blend dress with a floral print. I just thought it was cool. When I've taken in some other vintage YouTube content, I know that Liz Claiborne is a brand that some vintage people really like to carry. Liz Claiborne was a really big deal when I was little. Now I think they sell it at JCPenney, like what modern day Liz Claiborne is. It's definitely lost its value in modern day terms, but I think their vintage pieces are still pretty cool in some cases. So this was just a silk like mini dress, a little shift dress. It sold for $20. I just want to see if I have what I paid for it. It was a size 14, which is nice because a lot of vintage clothing is cut much smaller than modern day clothing. So if you can find vintage in a larger size, it's really nice. Yes, I did purchase this at the bins. Sometimes I just know when something's a bins purchase. Like I don't think I would have purchased that dress even for like $5 at a Savers. Because I'm not like a vintage person, I don't know too much about vintage, but definitely at the bins, it's a perfect example of something I would take a chance on. Plus silk is so lightweight. It's a great thing to pick up at the bin. The next item, this, I was really hesitant to take this offer, but it had just been sitting around for so long. I purchased this Dries Van Noten. I know I'm saying that wrong. I'm gonna see how I can pronounce this. Dries Van Noten. Let's see how I'm really supposed to say this. Okay, here we go.
Dries Van Noten.
Dries Van Noten. Should we hear that one more time?
Dries Van Noten.
Okay. Third time.
Dries Van Noten.
Dries Van Noten. There you have it. I at least look up my pronunciations on YouTube. I found this beautiful like blazer with this very thin little belt. It was in perfect condition and I bought it at an estate sale and all the clothing was $1. I'd never heard of this brand before. When I got home and looked up comps, I realized very quickly it was designer. It was sold at the Real. It was a beautiful vintage piece. It was wool. It was flawless. And I just happened to really think the style was gorgeous. I believe I had this listed at $199 or $175, quickly dropped it to $150, got like a $40 offer on eBay, $50. It was just, I was not getting what I had hoped for. But based on some of the pricing at the Real, I was like, well, maybe I'll leave it here for a while. Anyways, it had sat long enough and I finally received a $75 offer on it. I was hesitant to take it, but there are just times where you say to yourself, am I a storage unit or am I a resale business? If I bought this for $1, $75 is an amazing return. You learned about a new brand and somebody is getting a gorgeous piece at a fair price. So I hesitated for a moment, but I was happy to take the $75 on this piece. And I also think sometimes, well, what if I had sent that to the Real? What would my payout have been on the Real? If they had priced it at $125 or $150, depending on what level I am at the Real, my payout may have been very similar or it may have been less, or maybe it was $20 more. I don't know. We take these gambles every day when we do our listings with our decisions we make, how much we want to invest in a piece, if we want to sell it ourselves, if we want to sell it to an online consignment platform. There's a lot to consider. Considering this was a new brand to me, I found it for $1. I sold it on my own in probably 7 or 8 months, I would say it took to sell. I was really happy with $75. Have you ever found that brand before? Have you had luck selling it? Comment below and let me know if you're familiar with that brand. Okay, the next item was definitely more in my wheelhouse. I sold these CHIC mom jeans, which was a big brand when I was young. They were just high-waisted, light-washed mom jeans. I think I had them listed for $50 or $55. I received a $45 offer, jumped on that. That was great. I love that $45 to $50 price range. I always feel really good about sales in that range, and I'm sure I paid about $5 or less for these jeans. So I was very excited about that sale. I still continue to pick up mom jeans. Baggy jeans are really in right now. Wide leg are super popular for spring of 2021. Daniela and I just did our podcast this week that came out, and it was spring trends, and like trouser style jeans are very popular right now. These were not trouser style, these were just good old fashioned mom jeans with the tapered legs. Next up was this vintage Obermeyer sweater. Obermeyer is a brand I'm pretty fussy about. I've had some pieces that just sit for an enormous amount of time. Sometimes I will favor picking up Obermeyer for men over Obermeyer for women. I don't really have a huge strategy, but what I will say is that I think that my vintage pieces have sold better than any modern pieces. I don't find a ton of modern Obermeyer, but anyways, I picked this up at a local thrift store, like a charity food pantry / thrift store, and I paid $4 on average per item at that store, and this sold in about a week for $40. So this was a really quick flip, and I feel like sometimes these Nordic prints, like I have a Dale of Norway sweater that I picked up that I have priced at $1.99, and I have a few other LL Bean style Fair Isle chunky wool sweaters that I have priced in the $60 to $70 range. I think I priced this one a little bit lower because I don't have huge success with Obermeyer, and then it sold really quickly, so I was happy about that. Do you pick up Obermeyer? Let me know. All right, this next item, I was so happy when this sold. Just this vintage silk mini skirt with little martini glasses on it. So cute, such a cute novelty print. I tend to send offers to likers a lot, so on certain pieces, when I have a ton of likes on it, I know that I've sent offers out over and over and over, and it gets a little frustrating when nobody bites, but there seems to be so much interest. And sometimes I think even if I send an offer and it's too high for somebody, I'm surprised that nobody counters with a lower offer. Like I probably would have sold this skirt for $20 because I don't sell skirts really well. So I'm pretty liberal on offers for skirts. I sent out an offer on this one and somebody accepted it. So I sent out a $30 offer with discounted shipping. I did purchase it at the bins in New Hampshire, so it cost under $2. It was pretty lightweight because it was silk again. And I just wrote size 12 fits more like an 8-10, fully lined, novelty print, martini glasses, really cute. All right, and this only had 13 likes on it. Sometimes I feel like I have a feeling about a piece and then I actually look at the information and it's a little bit different. So did sell on offer to likers, did purchase it at the bins, and it had 13 likes on it, and it's a super cute skirt, and I hope whoever ended up with that skirt is really enjoying it. I sold this safari Mickey Mouse shirt. I'm pretty certain that this was vintage. It was a kid's shirt, size 7-8. I picked this up at the bins. It sold for $15. I thought it was really cute. It was nostalgic. It looked like something an employee at Disney World would wear, so I thought that was really cute. Super lightweight, bins purchase. Oh, next up, this was a mishap, but it ended up ending fine. I sold this teal floral print Victoria's Secret gold label nightgown, and I'm happy that this sold this year because I do love to talk about Victoria's Secret gold label. It is something that I enjoy picking up. Some pieces sell better than others. However, it is, I would say, more valuable in a lot of cases than some of the modern day Victoria's Secret, especially if you get the right print. Victoria's Secret used to be a really special thing back in the 80s and 90s. This had been listed for a while. I ended up receiving a $24 offer on it, sold, accepted, all that. I went to package it up and I noticed that right here in the front where the trim met the floral pattern, it was literally just blasted open. I don't know how I missed it. Frayed and everything, but just the way that it fell, I missed it. I had noted a couple flaws on the piece, and then I went to ship it and I said, oh my goodness, I cannot send this to this woman. So I messaged her. It was fixable though. I mean, you could definitely stitch it if you were handy, but I wasn't going to do that. And I also feel like at that point it was damaged. I would have had to have noted that, you know, even if I had mended it on my own. So anyways, I messaged the woman. I said, I can't send this to you. I found some damage. I don't know if I updated the listing, sent her pictures, or just described it to her, and she still wanted it. So I said, well, I can't sell it to you for $24. How about $9? And then that way I knew it would just cover my cost. The woman seemed really happy with that. She actually said to me, are you going to relist that damaged? And she really wanted the piece. So I think this was just a woman who was willing to put some of her own time in to make it good. And I ended up selling it for $9. So that I was like happy that I was able to salvage that sale. I probably made a few dollars on that. And she seemed happy with it. She gave me a 5-star rating. So, you know, sometimes we aren't perfect and we find the flaws, and for me, I just own the flaw and move forward. So I was happy that she still wanted it and that I was able to get it out of my house instead of donating it, because it was pretty severely damaged in my opinion, even though it was something that she could fix. So all's well that ends well. But definitely the gold labels for Victoria's Secret are worth a second look if you ever come across one for the right price. The next item was another bins pickup. It was from Harold's. It was vintage Harold's. It was mohair, open knit cardigan sweater. It was a very small size, but it was very lightweight. I think I had this priced at $30 and it ended up selling for $15. So this was another half off thing. It had been sitting for a bit. I probably would not have picked it up had I not been at the bins. And when I have that in the back of my mind, there are a lot of bins things that I pick up and I think, you know what, if I get a $15 offer, that's great, because stuff at the bins costs between like $1 and $2 on average. This was super lightweight. And then if it sells for $15 and Poshmark takes $2.95 and I'm left with $12, it's a $10 profit. I am getting 5 times my investment back on a return. So, and those things can move really quickly for the right price. So if you'll also notice a theme here is that I do find a lot of my vintage pieces at the bins. That's a place where I'll take a chance on things. Obviously, there are vintage pieces that catch my eye, that I love, that I no question want to pick up. I'll pay up for certain vintage. A lot of vintage outerwear I'll pay up for. I've done very well on some like vintage Burton pieces. Vintage snowsuits can do really well if you pick up the right brand. I forgot to mention these vintage Stuart Weitzman jelly flat sandals that sold in a bundle. The bundle was given at a 30% discount, so these sold for approximately $35. I had $3 into these, but they have been with me for well over a year. I was happy to see these go. Also, when I added up all of these items, it came to $481. I divided that by 14 items that I featured here, including these Stuart Weitzman shoes. So my average selling price on all of these vintage items that I mentioned was $34.35. I thought that would be some helpful information to have as well. So some of my little honorable mentions that I wanted to mention. I sold a few items. BCBG cardigan sweater that just sold today for $30 with a $30 offer. Again, I think it's more like Y2K, but I'm not super good at identifying. I say all the time that I had my son Anthony in '99 and I had Rocco in 2004. And those years of my life are just gone. I don't remember a thing between '99 and like 2006. Those 7 years I was like breastfeeding and chasing babies and changing diapers. I had no idea what was going on in the fashion world. I was home raising my kids, watching Blue's Clues and Sesame Street. The world could have crumbled around me and I had no idea what was going on with fashion. So the Y2K trend that's in right now, I'm really struggling with, because modern fashion I'm good because I have kids. A lot of vintage stuff, 90s, 80s, that was my era. I'm pretty good with that. The Y2K stuff I'm struggling with. But these items that sold, I would date them around, you know, between 2000 and 2005. So definitely this BCBG sweater. I also sold this Lucky brand zigzag sweater. This was like one of those sales that I was like, are you kidding me? Did that just sell for full price, or did I just get a $40 offer on that? This top sold for $40, old label Lucky. So I was pretty excited about selling that. And then the last thing that I sold that I couldn't quite say was vintage was this blue LL Bean men's. I believe this is an older version of their trail jacket. This was another full price sale over the weekend for $65. I was super happy with this sale. I think it's it's vintage. I couldn't quite say that it was. And if you have any tips on identifying vintage, like I know if there's like that union tag, that definitely indicates vintage. Usually if something's made in the USA that is now typically made overseas, that's a great indicator that something is vintage. Fine fabrics a lot of the time are one of the factors that could indicate that something is vintage. There are little telltale signs, but with these brands, BCBG, Max Azria, Lucky Brand, I think these were still, you know, that Y2K era. So these are all pieces that sold in the month of January or early February that were pretty decent turnovers for me and gave me a really good profit, and they surprised me a little bit, but I'm not sure if they were quite vintage. So I hope you enjoyed this edition, this What Sold video vintage edition. I did have fun pulling it together. I always want to highlight some of my vintage sales because I think there are a lot of questions around vintage. 3 people in the reselling business who I really turn to for vintage information is Laura Von V, Christina Sherilyn, I hope I'm saying that right. She used to be Little Black Hanger on Instagram. She is a great resource for vintage. And Brittany Jasper from Shop Foxborough also does some great YouTube content and Instagram content on vintage pieces. So those 3 women are usually the first people I go to watch their content to find out about vintage. So I encourage you to check out all of their channels. But in the meantime, I'm just plugging away over here in my little part of the reselling world and really having fun finding vintage pieces, learning about vintage, seeing what sells for good money, and just, you know, I love the research end of this business. So for that reason, vintage will always be exciting for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch my video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really means so much to me. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos. I release about 2 videos a week. And also my last video, I talked about Ana Luisa. I'm wearing that same necklace that I wore. I'm obsessed over this green necklace. It's so pretty. They are running a Valentine's Day special. So if you go to Ana Luisa New York NY, analuisany.com, you can check out, they're running a 15% off sale. I'll have a link below. I think that special runs through Valentine's Day. So definitely check that out. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great day. Love you guys. I'll be back soon. Bye.